Good morning, everybody. This is Steve. Well, welcome back to our Vcarve Pro Fireplace mantle design. Basically, we told you in the opening that we're only doing the engraving on the fascia itself. We're not physically going to be building a fireplace surround, mantle surround, hearth surround, okay? Here we have our completed CRV file for the Vcarve Pro fireplace mantle design itself. What we're going to do is we're going to show you real quick how to go in, how to find the centers, how to insert your measurements, and excuse me, we'll do that by clicking on our cabin. We have 5 toolpaths total, okay? We have the cabin on the right, the trees on the right, the trees in the center, the little outcropping of rock and trees on the left, and finally our bear, which I did mention. You will have to go back in and pick some of the HD, a lot of the high definition. You'll have to pull that out so you don't end up with a silhouette after you mill it, okay? Maybe we'll do another tutorial on that later. Alright, well, we'll do just 2 measurements here because we still have got to take, because I told you in the intro, we're going to program this on what would be the equivalent of the x-axis on your machine. We're going to end up rotating this clockwise 90 degrees. Now, you would not want to put this thing together with your head cocked sideways, okay? We do that by clicking on our first toolpath. It says cabin. Alrighty, let's come over to add dimensions. Now, the way to do this, which I found to be the easiest, let me highlight him again. Right click, add a vertical guideline in. We're going to add both a vertical and a horizontal, and you'll see why in a moment. But we're going to just bring him in. Click on a dotted line again, and what we want to do is we basically want to put our guideline in the center, and we're going to also highlight him again, and we can see that our center node falls directly in the center of our material, okay? As I told you before in all of this, let me unhighlight him and scroll out. We end up on our job dimensions in origin. You can see the red dot in the center. I start all my milling, I touch my top, and I program everything off the center of the material. Alright? Alright. Now, let's zoom back in on our cabin. We highlight him, and we can see we've got our first node in. Well, let's come over here to add a dimension. We know that we need to go from our center here to our outer edge, and it's going to show us 8.04. Well, my hands aren't that steady, so off the right hand side of the material, we're 8 inches up. Now, these guidelines that you see on this piece of material will ultimately be the same lines that we put on the material with a square and a pencil, because I told you we're going to rotate this 90 degrees, because this will not fit, because it's 70 inches wide. It will not fit across the x-axis of our spoiler board, okay? What we'll also do is we'll come in and we'll add another dimension here, which we already know is 6 inches. We're 6.01, okay? I'm not cutting tolerances on wood that tight, so it's 6 inches. It's half the width of the material once we rotate it 90, and it's 8 inches up from the bottom. Okay, now, if in the event you don't have your material centered, such as the one here with the trees, my center starts up higher than my physical x-axis center line, okay? So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to right-click, we're going to pull in a guideline. This one we're going to put in horizontal. Now, the one thing I can mention is that as you add these lines, and you have entered the actual dimensions, delete them, because what will happen is you'll probably end up getting something crossed at some point. We have our center line here. Now, we're not going to be putting these center line markings on the material. The only thing that we are interested in, we're going to right click and we're going to throw up another vertical guideline. Again, the only guideline we're going to be interested in to mark our material is this one, in fact, right here that we're adjusting now. Keep clicking on any of the highlighted toolpaths to get your center node back. Get it as close to as you can. Like I said, give or take a couple thousandths is not the end of the world here. Alright, same thing again. We have found the center. Now, again, this will be our x-axis line after we end up, I'm sorry, this will be our y-axis line after we rotate the image 90 degrees. What we're going to do is we're going to add another measurement. And this is basically what you're going to do for each one of the 5. Run him over to the outer edge. Now keep track of this horizontal line because, as I told you, if we run this at an angle, we're going to get a different measurement. We click OK and click again. So we're 24.23. Now that we have it, let's close this out. Let's right click and let's get rid of this guideline. Okay? Because if we have too many guidelines kicking around, we're going to get confused where our centers are on other pieces or other parts of this this scene. Now with this being my center, I'm going to come in. Oh, goodness. Grabbed the wrong one. I'm sorry. We want our length dimension. And we're going to come in and we're going to come up to the top. 5.08 inches from our top down. 24.23 inches over. So 24.25 from the far right hand side of the board. These are basically going to be the lines that you mark, okay? Well, the other thing that we have to do is once you've done this, you can go in, you can highlight this, and you can delete these as you find their centers. You don't have to keep them. Now what we have is we're basically going to build a schematic that we're going to transfer all of our measurements on these vertical lines over to the material. Alright? Alright, so what we're going to do is we're now going to take this piece and we're going to rotate it and invert it 90 degrees, and I will show you why we have these dimensions in the way we do, okay? We're going to create a new file. Well, on our height, we're now going to go 70 point, and on our width, we're going to go 12. We've just basically taken this big project and we have spun it. Now you can see where this would be a real pain in the neck to try to put in all your designs and layouts, because now this will fit under your y-axis regardless of what size machine you have. The only thing you cannot, on my machine, I'm 48 inches from top to bottom and I'm 36 from side to side. Whatever the space is under your gantry, as long as you do not exceed it, regardless of your equipment. This is how I do big bar tops, custom engraved bar tops in my shop. I've only got 4 feet of milling surface, alright? So we're going to take now and we're going to import, let's import the mantel scene. Now what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to rotate this exactly 90 degrees. Now it's going to take a moment or so for this to import, so please bear with me. Alright, well now we can see the actual design that we laid out set under a different parameter as far as we program this horizontally. Obviously, rotating this 90 degrees like we're going to do now. Double click on this and let's get everything lit up with boxes. We're going to hold down our shift key. Now by holding our shift key down, we highlight our rotation, and holding the shift key, each step is exactly 15 degrees. There's 2, there's 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can let off your mouse, you can let off your shift key. The only thing that I will do, and that I do find sometimes in rotating these, is I have to recenter them. Again, we are going off dead center of the material. Alright, well the one thing we're going to do is after it's imported, we've got it rotated, we're going to pull in, and trust me now, we have a DXF file that we're going to bring in right here. This is an exported copy of all the measurements, alright? Before I go any further, the one thing I am going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to group selected objects. Because if you don't, each time you click on this, only one item is going to light up. We're not looking for the toolpath function by any means. What we're looking to do with these is to make sure that everything, after we rotate this image 90 degrees, we want to make sure that everything lines up, okay? So I'm going to click on this image, holding down the Shift key. We're going to move him 6 steps. I'm going to let off my left mouse button. I'm going to let off my Shift key. Now, if I click him, everything lights up again. I want to come to Align Selected Objects. We're going to make sure that he is dead center of the project, okay? Now, what we'll do is we'll come in here, and we're going to create our first toolpath. Again, we'll call it the same name that we used when we programmed it horizontally, and we'll call it Cabin. Now come in and click off any of your measurements, okay? It's going to blacken them. We're going to zoom in. This is where the center, after we rotated all of our center points in our imported DXF file, we click someplace else, and we can see that, yes, something has moved a little bit. Not a lot, but just a little. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our center. As you can see, we are now dead center. What we're going to do here is we're going to take and we're going to cut our very first toolpath, okay? We're going to hit Calculate. Just make sure that you do not have any of your measurements lit up or it will engrave them. Like I said, we're strictly using those as reference only. Let's close this out. Let's pull up our preview toolpaths and let's take a peek. Now, we'll put some color in them so we can see what we've got. And basically, if we rotate our image 90 degrees counterclockwise, there's the same cabin, okay? What we'll do is we'll do a couple more just so you have a clear understanding. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up and we're going to go to the second item that we wish to engrave. We'll take and we'll light up. Now, I told you again, anything you click on you don't want, hold your Shift key down and unhighlight it. I do not want any of the cabin because we've already milled it. I need to add the grassy knoll in, any little pieces. Alright, and then what we're going to do, we're going to open up another engraving toolpath, and we'll call these Trees Right. And we're going to render that toolpath. However, like I said, make sure your measurements are not highlighted because they will get engraved into the material. We hit Calculate. And you just have to bear with me for one moment. Alright, we close this. We take our check off and we highlight it again. And okay, we can see that our center of our material is just a little off. We're going to bring him down. With everything aligned properly, excuse me, you just keep going, and each item you make sure is ready to be cut. Now, if we zoom in, if I zoom in and I double click again, all our center nodes line up with our measurements. Now, the only thing you will need to do here is you will need to take and you will need to draw these lines with your square, speed square, carpenter square. And ultimately, when we go to render the toolpath, this is how we're going to do it. Now, we've made a mark on the y-axis of our table, which will be this one right here, ultimately creating the center of our material. This line right here is now going to be your X, okay? Going vertically up and down is your y-axis. If you take with each toolpath, with your marked center line that you see right here, this is why I tell you to get some roller stands or something to hold any overhanging material, because what we're going to do is we're going to pull this up, and our tool path is always going to be rendered off this line. You're going to move each function that you've marked, and you're going to line it up with that line on your spoiler board, and that's where you're going to calculate your tool path. Remember, we're moving the material, not the gantry, because you've only got, on a smaller machine, you have a limited amount of space. Now, when everything is said and done, from moving it around, make sure you've secured it in place. But this is in fact how we do the larger scenes. Once you render the tool path, you can hit your back arrow and you can move him back. That is seriously all there is to doing this, okay? If anybody's confused on anything, by all means, please feel free to shoot us an email. As always, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate my subscribers very, very much. And I hope that everybody got a little something out of this. Your only limitations that you have to remember is how big you set your pieces. Again, you can always pull up, select object size, look at it, and we're going to be looking here on the Y. So the actual height for this piece from here to here is 18.546 inches. So even under a 24-inch table, as far as your Y-axis, you will be able to do these renderings. And again, remember, you're moving the physical material. You are not going to readjust your centers. Once you touch top, in the dead center of the material, right here, once you do your touch top and you set your X and Y to 0 there, each time you bring one of these in, it already knows enough for the cabin, for the trees, and it will mill. Okay? You do not have to readjust your X. Alright? Just mark up your line, get it to the one that you have on your spoiler board table, and run each one of these tool paths. But remember, each one has got to be brought in, and then you construct your tool path. Once the tool path is done, you can always go back with him to set him back. And there you have it. Okay? Again, if I've confused anybody or there's any questions, please feel free to email us, steve@littlewoodshop.com. And yeah, I hope this helped everybody, alright? Everybody enjoy your weekend. We'll see you midweek for our midweek shout-out. Alrighty, bye-bye.